So you just got Streets of Rogue and finished the tutorial, but are struggling to get past each floor and aren't sure why. Well, as someone who's 100% in this game, let me help yinz out. Welcome Mayors to Be, I'm Ian and this is the Streets of Rogue New Player's Guide, where we'll go over the non-character specifics of this game and hopefully help you become mayor someday, because everything is a bad idea until it works. So without further ado, let's get into it. Streets of Rogue is a roguelike game, meaning you have to go through procedurally generated areas whilst completing various objectives in order to progress to the next floor, until you eventually reach the final floor where your final objective will be to steal the mayor's hat and become mayor yourself. When first opening the game, if you just want to jump right into things, you can select Quick Start and then just select whatever character you wish to play as and get right into it. However, there are things we can do to make runs easier or harder if you so desire. And to access them, you'll need to select your home base and walk around to said home base. To your lower right is the co-op room, where you can queue up to engage in jolly cooperation with your friends or complete strangers. If you wish to start your run with a complete party but don't have friends to queue up with and don't want to wait in character select for who knows how long, this is an excellent room to visit. In the room above this one is the traits room, where you can unlock various new traits to select when you level up between runs. In order to unlock these new traits, you will have to expend chicken nuggets. Chicken nuggets are the currency you use to unlock things between your various runs, and they can be acquired by completing various optional objectives as you go through the various floors. In this room, you can also disable traits you don't like, so if there's this one trait you find completely useless, you can actually disable it, improving the odds of you getting the traits you actually want later on in the game. Or if you want to challenge yourself, you can disable all the traits you like and only have the traits you don't like being options for you to choose when you level up. In the room across the hall from these two is the seed room. In this room, you can enter a seed in order to control the procedural generation of the world as you progress through the various floors. So if you don't like how roguelikes have randomly generated worlds, this is where you can change that. You can type anything here you wish, your birthday, an inside joke with your friends, your social security number, but personally, I recommend the subscribe seed. Not only is it what you should be doing alongside liking this video, but it also generates a mission in the slums that gives you resurrection shampoo if completed properly. You'll also gain a pond early in the park levels that allows you to turn into a giant that can be used ad nauseum to your heart's content. So if you want to be able to temporarily turn into a Godzilla-sized monster and then stomp on cannibals in the park, have at 'em. Plus, whatever you type as the seed will appear in the bottom right of your screen. Great if you want to tell your audience to like, comment, and subscribe without actually annoying them with the like, comment, and subscribe spiel every big-name YouTuber does. Not so great if you're live streaming and decide to use your social security number as the seed. Just remember that the seeds are cap sensitive, so make sure to use all lowercase if you want to get the exact same seed I used in this video. Further north, you'll find 4 more NPCs to talk to that can affect how your various runs pan out. The first of these guys we will cover is the rewards guy, who operates under the same rules as the traits guy except with items. So if you want to unlock new items to use in the game, you'll have to expend chicken nuggets here. Please bear in mind that the items you select and deselect here only affect what you're going to get as mission rewards. They don't affect what will show up in trash cans, shop vendors, or NPC inventories. So don't get any ideas that you can just disable pistols and police batons and then all the police will lose their weapons. So if you were wondering why the subscribe seed didn't necessarily give you that resurrection shampoo reward as one of the early game quests, this is why. You don't have the same item configuration as I did. The next NPC of note is the loadout guy, who, once you've unlocked everything in this game, will become your only reason to spend chicken nuggets whatsoever, as he lets you select one item to add to your inventory at the start of a run, allowing you to start the game with items that would otherwise not be in the starting inventory of certain characters. So if you want to go running around the map with a rocket launcher as a slum dweller from the very start of a game, this is how you do that. Just bear in mind that the items you can choose from to start your run are randomly generated, and you'll have to expend chicken nuggets to re-roll them until you get the stuff you actually want. Please bear in mind, however, that you only get to select one item here to bring on your various runs. If you spend nuggets on one item and then spend nuggets on a second item, that second item is going to override the previous item you selected. So don't get any ideas of being able to start the game as a slum dweller with a ham sandwich and a rocket launcher in your inventory. You have to choose between a ham sandwich or the rocket launcher, but you can't have both at the start. The next NPC of note is the Mutators guy, who can add or remove mutators from the game. So if you want to have disasters going off on each floor, or if you want to have infinite ammo, or if you want to have every floor being played under a time limit, this is where you would enable or disable various features like that. The last NPC of note is the tutorial guy, where you can replay the tutorial if it's been a while since you opened up this game and forgot the basics. Next to him is the floor select, where you can decide what floor you wish to start from. This can be an excellent tool for practice if you're trying to get past the later levels but are sick of having to backtrack through the earlier ones over and over again to do so. Once you've fiddled with the options to your heart's content and have decided on something that's arbitrarily good enough for you, it's time to select your character. There are many characters to select from in Streets of Rogue, over 30 in total if you count DLC, and you can even create custom characters, but that's a subject for another day. Since going over all of them individually would make this video far too long for any reasonable man's patience, I will instead go over what to look for when selecting your character. Firstly, there are your stats, or attributes as they're called in-game. They range from 1 to 4, with bigger being better. They are as follows. Endurance, dictating your maximum HP. Very self-explanatory here. Equally easy to understand is speed. This affects how quickly you can move around the map. It does not, however, affect attack speed whatsoever, so don't go thinking you can swing a baseball bat faster if this number is bigger. Speaking of baseball bats, let's go over the melee stat next. The melee stat affects melee damage. If it's set to 1, your melee attacks will hit like a wet pool noodle. If it's at 4, you'll hit like a gorilla. Literally. Did I mention you can play as a gorilla in this game? The last of the core attributes a character can have is firearms. This affects primarily your gun's accuracy and to a lesser extent its damage. At 1, your aim will be akin to a tall man with 2 broken arms trying to relieve himself, whilst at 4, you're pissing on expert mode. You'll also wish to look at your character's starting traits and items. Some characters will start with items that are amazing, like how the robot starts with a rocket launcher, whilst others tend to have underwhelming items in their starting inventory, such as the werewolf having only a ham sandwich and how the zombie doesn't have anything at all. However, traits are even more important than items, since you can't sell the ones you don't like and cost money to remove. For instance, the starting character known as the Doctor has the trait Pacifist, meaning they can't use any weapons except for the tranquilizer gun you start with. So if your game plan was to kill a cop and steal his gun, you better be using a different character than the Doctor. The last and most important 2 factors to consider when selecting a character is whether or not they have a special ability as well as their big quest. Special abilities are unique to each character and can only be used by them if you selected them or if you made a custom character with said special ability. Please bear in mind not all characters have special abilities, but those that do are often defined by this ability in question, for example, the werewolf's transformation or the hacker's laptop. One lets you turn into a bloodthirsty monster and liquefy people by punching them so hard they explode, whilst the other lets you make refrigerators impersonate the Kool-Aid Man. I think we can all agree which one is superior. Then there is your character's big quest. The big quest is an optional side mission that your character can do on each floor, and should you be able to complete it correctly once you reach the mayor's village at the end of the game, you will be given a special bonus. This bonus will vary and is always thematic to whatever the mission in question you were doing was. Characters where you have completed this big quest in the past successfully will be marked with a green outline in Character Select. If, however, you don't care about 100% in the game, you don't actually have to complete the big quest whatsoever in order to win. Once the non-optional missions on each floor have been completed, you can traverse to the next one at your leisure, regardless if you have completed the big quest or not. However, since you get a nice EXP boost whenever you do so, it's strongly recommended to complete your big quest if possible. Speaking of the non-optional missions, let's go over what you can expect to see once you've decided what character to play and start exploring the various floors. In Streets of Rogue, you'll need to complete 2 to 3 missions on each floor before the elevator will unlock, allowing you to move to the next floor. Missions on each floor can vary wildly, from freeing random prisoners to destroying random objects to acquiring random items, flicking 3 switches in a random building, my personal favorite, neutralizing a random number of NPCs via any means necessary, and so much more. If a quest becomes impossible to complete for whatever reason, for instance, if you were to try to bust a prisoner out of prison with explosives only to blow up the prisoner along with his cell, you will fail the quest. However, this will not prevent you from moving on to the next floor. It'll simply deny you the EXP and item you would have been given if you had successfully completed that mission. When exploring the floors, keep an eye out for vending machines, since shopkeepers can turn hostile or die for reasons outside of your control and aren't guaranteed to spawn on any given floor. Whilst in contrast, vending machines will always spawn on every floor and will always accept you even if you punch them in the face. The vending machines are as follows. The ammo dispenser lets you refill your firearms ammo pools so long as you have cash to do so. ATMs allow you to store items between your runs, also needed for certain characters' big quests, most notably the Slum Dweller as well as the DLC character the Courier. Augmentation booths let you remove, swap out, or upgrade your traits on any given character. This process can be extremely expensive, so if you're short on cash, you won't be able to use this machine very much, if at all, on that floor. However, if you have the money to spend, it's generally considered to be well worth the effort. Clone machines allow you to duplicate non-weapon items and even yourself. Useful if you need an extra pair of hands to do your dirty work, want more bananas, or want to set yourself up for an election victory via cloning yourself a few times and having them vote in your favor. Just keep in mind you can only use this thing 3 times on a floor before it runs out of juice, so don't go thinking you can clone yourself a dozen times and have a small army of yous. The goodie dispenser gives you random items, great if you have inventory to spare and cash to burn, but much like the cloning booths, it only works thrice before it runs out of steam. The loadout-o-matics let you buy anything in your character's starting inventory, as well as whatever item you may or may not have selected from the loadout guy at Homebase. And last, and certainly not least, is the sell-o-matic, where you can sell all the junk items your kleptomaniac-ass hoarded so you can pick up that quest reward you had to leave in that building over there. All of these machines can and almost certainly will be useful at some point, so keep an eye out for where they are. Once you've concluded with everything you need to on a given floor, you'll be able to use the exit elevator to progress to the next one. However, if you leveled up whatsoever on that floor, you will need to select a new trait to add to your character's arsenal. Unlike the ones that can be found on characters in Character Select as well as selected from in Character Creation, the traits that will be made available to you here will be purely beneficial. However, the things you can select from here won't be restricted to solely traits. They can also be boosts to your core attributes as well as buffs to your super special ability. And if you're wondering what would happen if you leveled up multiple times on a floor, well, here's the answer. You'll select one thing from the variety of options, then an entirely new pool of options will show up for you to select from for each time you leveled up. Once you've made your selection in the elevator, the game will then start to load the next floor. The floors that make up your average run can be divided into 6 stages, or biomes as I like to call them. Each biome will generally be divided into 3 floors and will have a relatively consistent theme. However, one should take caution, since on the 3rd and final floor of each of these biomes, there will be a disaster of some kind to act as a final test of your skill. These disasters can vary wildly, from random status effects to a zombie outbreak, or, most famously, a killer robot with a rocket launcher hunting you down. The first of these biomes you'll have to explore is the slums. They are a relatively easy area to traverse since the police presence is relatively minimal, and NPCs will generally not be hostile to you until you punch them in the face or break into their house. Because of this, as long as you don't do anything particularly stupid, you should have no issues traversing through the slums without getting yourself killed. And if you're smart enough not to forget how you can teleport through the map menu, you should be able to do so in record time as well. Just remember that teleportation in this game can only be done if you are outside of a building, not in combat, and there are no active disasters going on the floor. Once past the slums, you'll reach the industrial area, where tiles will randomly spit fire, minecarts will be rolling around the place, and barrels of explosive god knows what and green god knows what will be in not at all OSHA-compliant fashion all over the area in a deadly obstacle course meant to kill any player who managed to get this far due to luck rather than skill. Still, the most deadly features of the industrial area are easy to spot and can be easily planned ahead for. So long as you use your time in the slums to stock up on healing items and armor, you should have little issue getting past this zone in particular. Once you get past the industrial area, you'll enter the park, and this is where things get dicey, since you have to deal with landmines in the grass, cannibals in the tall grass, science labs full of man-eating plants, and vampires will start to spawn in the area and randomly drink your blood and causing you to be stunned and dizzy, so that's fun. There are shopkeepers running stalls here that sell the essentials you'll need to get through, so not all hope is lost yet. At least until you accidentally hit them because you were shooting at cannibals nearby, that is. Still, whilst the park is dangerous, it's a far cry from the perils to come as we ascend. The next area is called Downtown, and it's basically just the industrial zone on hard mode. The minecarts will be replaced by full-blown trains, and the fire-spinning tiles from the industrial zone will be replaced with manhole covers that will occasionally spill out thieves to try to steal your stuff, as well as cannibals who will try to steal your life. And if you do anything to scare the citizens of this floor, they will rush to the closest alarm system and call super cops to kill you. They will return to whence they came after a bit of not shooting at you, but it's best not to bring them in altogether if possible. The police boxes they spawn from can be disabled if you have a wrench in your inventory, just be careful that no one sees you when you do this. You'll also need to keep an eye out for the Mafia, since unless you picked the friend of the family treat, they might try to shake you down for cash or items if you walk past them. If you refuse their offer, they will try to make you swim with the fishes, and whilst it is possible for you to fight them off, this will often cost you resources that you'll be needing in order to successfully pass the next layer. The second to last floor you'll be exploring is called Uptown. On this floor, there are robots that will insist you turn over your booze and firearms or face lethal force, and this can be quite troublesome since all the cops on this floor have been upgraded to super cops and tend to spawn in far greater number than they do on the previous levels. Worse still, if combat is engaged with the police whatsoever on this floor or their police robots, temporary indestructible walls will jut out from the floor across the level. There are many ways to deal with this sort of issue. From luring the robot to a nice remote corner where no one can see you kill him, certain items in the game such as body swappers and wall bypassers allow you to ignore the lockdown walls altogether. If you're playing a sneakier character, you can just try to hide from the police and wait for them to give up their search and end the lockdown. Or you can use my favorite technique of simply using explosives, since while the lockdown walls themselves are indestructible, whatever structures or buildings they're next to aren't. And remember, a lockdown will occur whenever the cops start fighting something. This means lockdowns can occur at complete random because a thief tried to pickpocket someone in front of a super cop, or because that zombie you broke out of prison started attacking people. If you manage to overcome the gauntlet that is the Uptown floors, you will be rewarded with access to the Mayor's Village, the final area of the game. Once in the Mayor's Village, the first obstacle you'll need to overcome is a blue laser alarm system as well as 2 bouncers. If you try to go through the blue laser system with weapons in your inventory, it'll set off an alarm causing a bunch of robots to spawn and charge at your position. This means you'll need to make the tough call of deciding to leave your weapons behind, try to fight your way through, or, my favorite, invent a third method. My personal favorite way of dealing with this security measure is to use warp grenades, which cause anyone who's hit by them to teleport somewhere else on the floor randomly. So just chuck one of those at your feet and you'll find yourself teleported inside the Mayor's Village well past the bouncers in no time. Regardless of how you got past the bouncers, your final objective will always be the same. Get the mayor's hat and then give a speech at the podium. I won't spoil every possible method you can go about this, but I will explain 2. The first is the most straightforward. Just kill the mayor and take his hat from his cold dead hands. However, since the mayor has a group of super cops around him at all times, this will be far from easy usually. The other method I will explain is the election victory.
Challenge accepted!
Election victories are the most complex way to win since they require you to work towards this goal on every floor, rather than just once you reach the Mayor's Village. This is because election victories effectively work on a simple tally system based on how many NPCs are allied or friendly towards you against how many are hostile or annoyed against you. This tally does not account for NPCs that are imprisoned or enslaved. However, NPCs that you rescue from imprisonment or enslavement will always be allied to you once you free them. As a result of this, creating prison breaks or releasing slaves en masse is always a good way to help improve your electability on any given floor. Another tactic to get NPCs to like you and therefore vote for you is to buy everyone around at the local bar, hand office workers cigarettes and food, or picking up traits like Friend of the Common People or Random Reverence to get NPCs to be on your side before you even enter the floor. However, getting people to like you is not the only thing you can do to get yourself an election victory. You can also pay the Mafia to help rig the election in your favor, though this alone will not secure you the election victory, as well as killing any NPCs that are hostile or annoyed with you on a given floor. As a result, I actually find committing genocide against cannibals in the park levels to be quite effective at boosting my electability on a given run. In fact, killing all the cannibals on a floor is actually so effective at boosting my electability in the park levels that I avoid using the Cool with Cannibals trait altogether if possible when going for an election victory. If you are able to get enough people to think that you would be a better mayor than a current mayor, you can then head up to the receptionist in the mayor's house and speak with him. This will cause the receptionist and the mayor to head down to the podium to wait for you. Once both the receptionist and the mayor are down there, speak with the receptionist and he will announce the winner of the election. If you manage to get enough people on the previous floors to like you, you will win the election and the mayor will peacefully hand over his hat. Otherwise, you'll have to go back to plan A and try to kill him. Regardless of how you got the hat, however, once you have it, head over to the podium and watch your character give a speech that will vary depending on who you picked in Character Select. There is much more to this game than just that, however, like how you can remove status effects at a toilet. However, part of the fun of this game is discovering new stuff as you go along. Besides, this video is already far longer than I would like it to be, so I'll just leave it where it is and say this. You're going to make mistakes, everything's a bad idea until it works, and success doesn't come to the people with the best plan. Success comes to the first person that comes up with something that works. With that said, I've been Ian, you have been you, and this has been the Streets of Rogue New Player's Guide. Thank you for watching.